Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth, and today we are going to set up my therapy journal. Now, if you've been around for a little bit, this journal might look familiar. This is the Midnight Moth journal from Archer and Olive, and it was supposed to be my 2022 success or goals journal, but I didn't get a chance to set that up with as crazy as my year has been. And so we're going to go ahead and set this up as my therapy journal. Now, I had already created some printables and things that I was going to use in this for that setup at the beginning of the year. And again, I didn't want it all to go to waste. I did think about using one of the journals from the September sub box. If you haven't watched that video, I'll link it down below. But again, I wanted to use these things that I already had on hand since they were already made and ready to go. And then I am just going to use one purple marker, which is from Ohuhu. More about Ohuhu in another video. I am also going to use my favorite light gray Tombow N95, as well as a cool gray Pigma Micron in .05. I recently bought a whole pack of Pigma Microns that are cool gray and light cool gray. So we're going to use one of those and kind of stay away from some of the harsher lines. And then of course I also have a Uniball silver gel pen to match the silver with the Midnight Moth on the front of the cover. Now again, I had printed these for a success or goals journal, but this is a very fitting quote for a therapy journal, so we are going to keep this and I am going to stick it into the front of the journal. I created all of these printables in Canva, including the quotes as well as the various moths. So Canva did have a very large selection of clip art that had, mystical sort of solar and solar system moths, and I just tapped into that to have all of these that I can use for the journal. And you'll see me flip through. There were some things that I had created for the success or goals journal that weren't going to work here. And so I did eventually toss those. I don't think I'm going to use them anywhere else, but I did salvage what I could use as well. And then I do have a singular sort of purplish washi tape that's quite old, so I'm trying to go ahead and get it used, as well as 3 different silver washi tapes, again, that are aging pretty rapidly. So I thought I would just go ahead and use them in this journal as well. Here I thought I was done, and I decided I was just going to tuck a little bit more washi tape up into this top section. Once I get the washi tape into place, that'll wrap up this cover page. Now know that this is not going to be a heavily stylized journal. I use a lot of simple graphs and charts, and so there's not a whole lot that goes into this. So turning to the first spread, now I did glue these 2 pages together like I do in most of my journals, that one page that doesn't lay flat. And we are going to move on to a spread that has an About Me section as well as a Support Team section. Now I've chosen to use this Ohuhu marker. It is a brush pen on one side, and then the other side has a 0.4 millimeter fine liner, which is really sort of the reason that I bought this set. I do have a video coming up where I am reviewing the Ohuhu markers, so stay tuned for that. Now I realize this doesn't show up very strongly on camera. It is a very light purple, but it does say About Me on the left side and then Support Team on the right side. Now this will be about the only time that you see me use the ruler in this setup. I use a ruler a lot, and so I skipped a lot of that in my footage, and you'll just see the lines pop in where they need to on subsequent pages. So the left is going to just be a free flow field. I'm going to put a title on it here in a minute that says, How Do I Feel? And that's just for me to reflect back to the beginning of August before I started my therapy sessions, to really pinpoint who I am now in going into this therapy. I do use the brush side of this Ohuhu marker for some of my headers. I did it once and then decided it wasn't dark enough, so I did come back and do that again. And then of course I'm using the Tombow to highlight every other line just for visibility, and a little bit of aesthetics on the page as well. Now, let's talk about the right side of the page while I'm writing in these headers for a support team. So in mental health, having some sort of support team is really important. Obviously, one of those is going to be medical, my medical doctors. The other is going to be family and friends. And again, it's important to remember that not all of your family and friends are going to be part of your support team. when it comes to mental health, not everybody understands the importance and the role that it takes to support somebody that has mental health issues. If you've been around for a little while, you guys know that I do live with bipolar disorder, and so I haven't had talk therapy in probably 20 years, even though I keep my disorder fairly well managed. And I've had a lot of issues come up, that big life changes from COVID and other things, and so I started therapy again, and that is the purpose of this journal. When you decide to start talk therapy, I think it's very important to have some goals. Your goals can actually help you find the right therapist for you. You certainly don't want to pick a therapist like for me who has no experience with bipolar disorder at all. And another thing that was very important for me was some grief counseling. My dad passed away a number of years ago now, but it's one of those things that has sort of disconnected me from my family, was my father's passing. And so here I am putting in 4 squares, like I said, a lot of charts and graphs and places for me to reflect in this journal. No heavy stylized setup at all. And so these 4 sections for me are going to be burnout recovery. That one should be an obvious one for those of you who've been here at least since the beginning of January, and me being very open about what it's been like to be an event manager post-COVID when a lot of our coworkers did not come back to work. One of those is going to be grief recovery again. And then I have the family disconnect, which is related to the grief, but I think it needs to be addressed on its own. And then the other one that I have put in here is being alone. I'm okay being by myself, but I have not been in a partnership in quite some time. It has been since my divorce, which was a long, long time ago. So one of my sons is living with me right now in this post-COVID world, but I am starting to think about possibly dating again, and just seeing if that is something that I want to explore. And of course, dating is always complicated in this world we currently live in, but dating as a woman that lives with bipolar disorder is a whole different ballgame. This next spread is going to be yet another chart, and this is going to be my session log. So I think it's important to keep track of the dates and times that you have therapy. For those of you who have 1 or 2 therapists for various different things or even more, I did put a spot on here to list the therapist in case you're seeing more than one therapist. That's important to know who you saw on what day. And this is exactly the same on the left as it is the right. So the first column is S for session number. The second column has 6 spaces for date, so 2 for day, month, and year. I then have the time. I do use a 24-hour clock, so I left 4 spaces for me to put in the time. I have a spot for therapist. The next column has $2 because that is the place for me to indicate what the copay is for that particular session. One of the reasons I've not had talk therapy in a while is due to the cost. And then the second 2 spaces, or the last column, is for me to put the page number of the notes that I take or my reflection post-session and what page that falls on. Now, I didn't have a lot of room for decoration here. I did stick a little bit of washi tape down at the bottom just to tie it into the rest of the journal, but that wraps up a very simple table for a session log. Moving on to the next spread, which will be a page for Toolkit and a page for a wheel of emotions. More on that wheel in a little bit. But on the left, I am going to set up a space for me to write down things that I can put in my toolkit that assist with my mental health. So I have 9 squares that I've put in here. I'm alternating the color of the headers just to shake it up just a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in 3 of these, at least the headers for 3 of these, which are sleep, mindfulness, and exercise. Those are 3 things that I know deeply impact my mental health. I will come back later and put some more personal information in these, or information that I know helps me, like in the sleep, to all the things that they tell us with our sleep health, correct? To just de-digitize at a certain point in the night, that sort of thing, and just tips and tricks that I can use. And then as my therapist and I uncover other things in my toolkit that can help keep me sane and regulated, I will add 6 there if I need to. I could always add some more in the back if I run out of space. Now, this is a wheel of emotions. You can Google this. It's all pretty standard and the same. It comes out of psychology books and whatnot. I did have to search a little bit to find one that was monochromatic and didn't have a whole lot of colors in it. But what that wheel of emotion has is in the center sort of the big emotions, and then it breaks down into the smaller emotions that feed that big emotion, and all the way to even a third tier of emotions that feed the middle emotions that then feed the big emotion, so that you can sort of identify what emotions fit where in your talks with your therapist. I tend to be a hider of emotions. I'm one of those people that represses things a lot. And so I found looking at this helpful. And of course, I'm also using some of the Moth stickers that I already have to put down on the page with this particular emotion wheel. And just as an example on how this works, and one of the things that I'm currently struggling with is branching out from the emotion of sad. There is one that is abandoned, and breaking out from abandoned are ignored and victimized. Now, I don't feel victimized. I have felt ignored by part of my family. Once my father passed away, again, I feel like he was sort of my tether, and that just kind of tells you where ignored and victimized feeds into the abandonment issues, and then abandonment attaches to sad. So I have just filled in that one. I'm going to look at this more in depth and fill in some others that are personal to me so that I can share them with my therapist. Now, I felt like I needed a little bit more reflection on why I'm starting therapy now, and I also wanted to set up the framework for me to come and do a quarterly review every 3 months, or put a quarterly review in my journal every 3 months. So here on this spread, I've titled it In the Beginning. And on the left side, I will have 2 categories. One of them is going to say why now, and the other one is going to be what can I change. So the why now area will be why am I choosing to start talk therapy now? And of course, what can I change, or what are those things I know I can already do for my mental health that don't necessarily include therapy. And then on the right will be the framework for my quarterly review. And that is for me to analyze my body, my achievements, my connections, and my enjoyment. And so I want to take those 4 categories every 3 months and check in with those to see how I'm feeling on those 3 areas. And then I did decide to turn this page into a ruled page. So I alternated my headers and my lines of purple and gray just to add some interest to the page. But there it is, and it's just another page for me to reflect. And then this next spread will be the beginning of what I'm calling my session notes. So again, I had this sticker that I had already put together when I thought this was going to be my success journal, but it fits in this context as well. And then on the left side, I have 2 categories. One is session notes and one is a bi-weekly review. And I'm just putting some questions there to ask myself. There are a lot of templates out there on therapy sessions and that sort of thing, but I didn't want to set up a template every single week that I went to therapy. And then right now I'm only going every other week, so I wanted to have a bi-weekly check-in so that I could stop and take some notes on that every other Friday that I am not going to therapy. So some of the questions I have for my session notes are: what themes did we explore? Did I have any epiphanies? Do I have any homework? How do I feel about me now? Can I take action on something? And did I find value in the session? And then for my bi-weekly review to kind of just check in every other week is: how do I feel today? What was the high of my week? What was the low of my week? Did I make time for fun? Did I try to live in the moment? And what do I want to discuss next? And I feel it's important, especially since I'm going to therapy every other week and not weekly, that I do this check-in on the bi-weekly in case things start to pop up and I begin to see that we're having a lot of breakthroughs and that I need to have these conversations more often. And then maybe I need to change my personal financial budget, cut some things out so that I can start going to therapy on a weekly basis if I find that I think that that is necessary. And then of course the last step on this spread is just to zhuzh it up with some washi tape and a few more of these stickers since I already have them on hand. And like I said, I want my session notes to be very free form. I don't want them to be constricted to a specific format. And so I've left the rest of this journal blank. I am going to start numbering these pages from these pages forward. So 1 and then moving forward from here so that I can appropriately log those page numbers on my session guide or my session log that I have here set up on this page so that I have an accurate representation of what is where. And that will wrap up the setup for this therapy journal. Now, obviously, I have some backfilling I need to come and do. I started therapy in August, so I've been to 4 sessions, I believe, at this point. And I do want to come back and fill in some of these things, backfill my session log, put in some of my notes. I do have some notes on my phone, but as we've gotten going, I think it's really important for me, again, to revisit these goals, pinpoint exactly what I want to get out of these goals, and what I'm looking for in my current round of talk therapy. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give me a big thumbs up. Let the YouTube gods know that you liked this content, and go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on those bell notifications so that you know when I check in with my therapy journal again. Comment below if you have any tools in your personal mental health journey toolkit. What do you use to keep a healthier mind? Maybe I can add it to my toolkit list, or maybe somebody who's watching can add it to theirs. Again, this base method for body achievement, connection, and enjoyment is going to be my quarterly review. I am willing to come back and check in on those quarterly reviews with you here on camera, so let me know if that's something you would be interested in. When I first brought up the idea of setting up a therapy journal, many of you reached out to me or commented and said that that would be something that you would definitely be interested in. So I hope you found some information helpful, either from this setup or from some of the questions that I am posing to myself as I start on this talk therapy journey. This setup was minimal on purpose because I do want to succeed, and I definitely wanted to have a lot of pages here in the back for my individual session notes. I hope you found some value in this therapy journal setup. Again, as someone who's lived with bipolar disorder for 26 years, I can say that in society, we've come a long way, baby, but we're still not there yet. And we still have more work to do in destigmatizing mental illness. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.